Brewery De Ryck, Arend Winter.
And remember, life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I've got one here today from the De Ryck Brewery, which is based in a place called Herzela, which is in East Flanders. And this is the Arend Winter beer that they've come up with. And it's a special beer that they've produced for this time of year, which seems to be the trend now with a lot of breweries. They brew, or certainly in Europe anyway, they brew winter beers, which are normally quite high in the ABV. And they're usually quite spicy. Certainly in Belgium, they make a point of putting lots of spices into their beer. And this one does look promising. This is from the De Ryck Brewery, which traces its heritage back to 1886. And they recently, well, I say recently, relatively recently, in 2006, they opened up their own bottling plant, and what they've done is they've actually changed the name, or come out with a style, come out with a range. They've come out with a range of beers called Arend, which means in Flemish it means eagle, as you can see from the eagle on the coat of arms there. And they do 4 types. I think it's a blonde, double, triple, and the winter beer. And this, of course, is the winter beer. Now, I've reviewed quite a few Belgian winter beers. I've got a fridge full of winter beers in there. I bought them all in. I was saving them up since I started in July, would you believe, getting the odd winter beer that was on sale. And now I've got a fridge full of them, and I'm just working my way through them now. So most of the reviews now are going to be winter beers, or beers that are seasonal and produced for Christmas, if you know what I mean. Now this, of course, as the name suggests, is brewed for the winter. And from what I can gather, they look like a pretty decent brewery, and they've got a pedigree. It's been a family-run brewery for 5 generations. And I think, well, I know that I've reviewed some of their beers before, but off the top of my head, I can't remember. But if you look for the channel, when you just do a search for De Ryck, D-E-R-Y-C-K, you'll see a couple of beers from that brewery. And from what I can remember, they were pretty decent. So let's see if this one is pretty decent. Right, it is a 330ml bottle. It is a 7% beer. Let me get the bins on before I read out any of the spiel on the back. It's far too small for me to read. Oh, it's a dark ruby brown top fermented beer from the. Honestly, I can't read it. If you can see how small that writing is now, if I hold that up to the camera, you can have a look. But I am fucked if I'm trying to read all that out with my dodgy mince pies. There is the front. They've recently changed the label. There used to be an eagle on that, but they've made it a little bit more festive now with that on there. The cap has got the Arend, I think that's how it's pronounced, logo on the top. As I say, this is a relatively recent addition to their brewery. They never had a bottling plant since 2006, or their own bottling plant, I should say. They probably had it before that, but it was contracted out. This stuff has been actually brewed by them. So let's stop gassing and let's see what this beer really is all about. Now this has been lying on its side. This could fizz up, so I may have to take emergency measures. So there could be some swearing, all right? And it hasn't. Oh, that is always a bonus. There is the cap. Can you see that? There you go. Right. Let's get it in the glass. Now, on their website, that it is served in a glass like this. I used this glass yesterday and it was absolutely filthy. I put it into the dishwasher. I put it into the dishwasher last night and I used some proper dishwasher tablets. Don't use the own brand from Aldi. They are absolute dog shit. I use the Fairy Liquid ones now. They seem to be pretty decent. But you've also got to remember, if you're going to wash your glasses in a dishwasher, try not to put them on the same shelf as where all the food is, because then food particles can attach to the glass and just ruin the beer. Right, there it is in the glass, and I can smell it from here. It does. There is a big caramel malt aroma coming from that. What else are we getting? Oh, a lovely sweet caramel malt. And a little bit of dried fruit. Dried fruit and spice. Do you know what it's reminding me of? Almost like, have you ever had roasted raisins? Sometimes you get them in cakes where cakes have been left in the oven too long, or there's been raisins at the top and they're quite crunchy. That's what it smells like. It smells really good. It smells really interesting, at least. And there's some typical Christmas spices there as well. I think it's like nutmeg or ginger or something. It smells really good. Let's get it down the hatch. Cheers. Whoa. Oh, that's really nice. Got a long fruity finish on that. Dark, dried and roasted fruit. That's what the aftermath tastes like. But there's a lot of caramel malt on this and some ethanol or spirit alcohol, whatever you want to call it. And there is a fair amount of carbonation on this as well. And there's some bitterness to that too. And the bitterness I'm perceiving on that is a mixture of like coffee roast. So the roasted malts in here really are quite big. And that's giving it a slight bitterness to the finish, which is quite nice. It sort of counteracts that sweetness that's been sort of put in there with that candy sugar. I have to say, this is really nice. One thing I will say, the carbonation is quite coarse. That is normally standard with these type of beers, you know, where they've put the sugar in the bottle and it's gone through its secondary fermentation in the bottle. And that just does produce a hell of a lot of carbonation in the bottle, and it sort of manifests itself when you pour that out. It does look quite nice though. That is a lovely sort of brown chestnut, murky brown chestnut colour. Tastes really nice though. Occasionally you will get the odd beer that will turn up from Belgium like this, sometimes in the form of a double, sometimes in the form of a winter beer, rarely as a quadruple, but usually as a double or a dark brune beer, as they call it, a brown beer, that reminds me of British old ale. Only occasionally, it's not often, but there are a few, and I think this is one of them. It does remind me a bit of that old ale, big malt, big caramel, slight toffee on the finish, quite a bit of spirit alcohol on there, but there's some sugar in there. They use candy sugar, the British use invert sugar. They are two different types of sugar. The process of both sugars is different. The candy sugar is caramelised. That will give it a sweetness that you do get on certain British old ales. One that springs to mind immediately is the Yorkshire Stingo from the Samuel Smiths, which has got that invert sugar on it. And this does remind me of that. And it's one of them beers where, you know, if you like old ale or traditional British winter beer, winter warmers they call them in the United Kingdom, you know, winter warmer, barley wine, old ale, it's just like a, you know, different terms for the same style of beer. This is very similar to that. It's nice. The balance of the ethanol in there is just right. God, there really is a bitter finish on this. It's a cross between roasted malt bitterness, and I'm perceiving that as hop bitterness, which is quite nice. I do like this. As I say, if you're a fan of old ale, you're going to like this, because it's very similar in that sort of style. The difference being the carbonation's bigger, yet there is that candy sugar in there, which does give it a sweetness, but the malt's quite big on it as well. And all in all, it's very typical of a British winter warmer, although it's obviously not. It's a Belgian winter beer. I think that could possibly be classed as a Belgian brown ale as well. 7%, so they haven't gone mad with the ABV on there, which is nice. You know, some of the ones that you do get are just insane, especially the quadruples. I tried a blonde yesterday that was 10%, and it was really dangerous because you couldn't get any ethanol flavour in it at all, which was nice, but very worrying at the same time because it was really drinkable. It felt like you were drinking a 5% blonde ale, when in fact you were drinking double that, and that could have serious consequences if you start necking that. But this stuff, I think you do get a sense of, you know, you're drinking a strong beer. This needs to be sipped. It needs to be savoured. It's not a chugger. This is one that's, you know, it is a winter warmer. That's how I would class it. Sitting in front of a fire, you know, after a meal, or maybe with a meal or something, and just taking it easy with this, or just chilling out after work. Do you know what I mean? It's nice. It is really nice, actually. And it really is reminding me of a British winter warmer. In fact, in a blindfold test, I wouldn't immediately associate that with Belgium, which is good and bad, because you want a bit of the national character of, you know, the country where the beer is made. But it's good in a way that, you know, it's very similar to a style of beer that I really like, i.e. the winter warmer, barley wine, old ale type thing. And that's nice. And it's a creeper, because the more I drink, the more I like it. In fact, I'm going to have another mouthful. You really do get the caramel malt on that. But there is hints of toffee on there as well that do come through. And that's not usual for a Belgian beer. You normally get big caramel malt, and then you get bombarded by the yeasty esters like clove and the spice, etc. But this is more like a Belgian brown ale, rather than any of them, you know, Belgian beers with the big yeasty esters on them. This is more about the malt, which I really like. That is a really nice beer. I really do like that. So what's the verdict on Arend Winter? It is a really nice beer. I have to say that is really good. They've not gone mad on the ABV, which I like, because that can ruin a beer. It's got a big emphasis on the malt, which is refreshing, because a lot of the Belgian beer from around this time of year, it's all about the added spices and the yeasty esters that they put in. The malt on this is really nice. If you're a big fan of British old ale, barley wine, winter warmer, you know, the winter beers that come out this time of year, you are going to love that. and I suggest you try that. I think this came from, did it come from Beers of Europe or the imaginatively titled Belgian beer, Hereford beer shop, not the fucking Belgian beer shop. Did it come from there? No, I don't think it did. No, that was a Beers of Europe beer. Well worth checking out. Really nice. And remember, beer is working class champagne.